Welcome to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. It's always a pleasure to be in your home on a Thursday. It's always good to be able to speak real estate with you. Of course, just as a reminder, Let's Talk TCI Real Estate is a show that is geared towards educating us all about real estate in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So, on the previous show, we actually spoke about real estate as a career opportunity, and I had used that opportunity to actually, just speak to you about some of the points that some of the things you should look into when you are considering becoming a real estate agent. We also spoke about, what to expect once you've already started your real estate career. If you did not have an opportunity to watch that program, please feel free to go back on my Facebook page and watch it. Of course, it is Real Estate with Vernica Delante, the page you're looking at now. But as always, I want to say to you, please like and share the page. But for today's segment, I am so excited to have with me in studio the Honorable Jamel Robinson. He is the Minister of Physical Planning, Development, and Infrastructure. And I am so looking forward to having him answer the questions that have come up recently about this new housing policy and, of course, about some of the initiatives that his ministry is putting forward. And without any further delay, I'm going to ask Honorable Robinson to please just say a few words as we begin.
Thank you, Vanika, and it's good to be on your program. It's good to speak to Turks and Caicos about my new ministry, the Ministry of Physical Planning and Infrastructure Development, and I'm just open to the questions. I think it's going to be a very, very good discussion this afternoon.
Great. So I just want to say from time to time to everyone who are listening, of course, if you have a comment or question, I know I've said it before, but just as a reminder, please feel free to put in the comment section. Don't wait until we're off the show and then you have a question and then you're sending it to us later. So this is a really good opportunity for you to get those questions answered. Right? So, Honorable Robinson, I know that you were first the Minister of Health, and now you have transitioned into this role for physical planning, development, and infrastructure. How have you settled in, so far? How has it been?
Oh, so far, I think I'm settling in pretty good. Definitely, it's a different speed trying to, I guess, build roads versus combat COVID-19. So it's definitely a different skill set that you use, and I think it definitely aligns more with the strategic thinking side of my brain. So that's what I hope to bring to the role over these next few years to be able to deliver projects for the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands. So it's a learning curve, of course, because anything that you're doing for the first time, it takes a bit, and we have basically a very very aggressive agenda that we want to accomplish. So we have to figure out ways how we will deliver that. So I have a small but mighty team, and I think we can do just that for the people of the Turks and Caicos.
I like that you said small but mighty because I was reading the newspaper recently and I actually wrote down the quote that you said. You actually quoted and said, essentially, this ministry, as small as we are the engine that drives government. We don't work government, government don't work. Sorry, let me read it again. Essentially, this ministry, as small as we are the engine that drives government. We don't work. Government don't work. Can you elaborate further on this statement for us?
So basically, if we don't deliver, then the government as a whole doesn't deliver, and the portion out of it left it out by mistake, or if it wasn't captured. And
It
if
wasn't
the
captured.
government, yeah, and if government don't work, politicians like me don't get reelected,
No,
right?
you know what? I saw that part. And
All
I
right. So
thought,
the
yes.
reason that is right is while policies are something that all governments must do, and I think as a government for the last 2 years we've been very good at policy development, but people love to see tangible things that they can see and feel. That's what a lot of persons measure government by. How well is their Ministry of Works, so to speak, is operating? So that's not only just symbolically, but like literally, because if you look at the 10 priority projects that the Turks and Caicos government has embarked on and engaged a delivery unit for, that we're going to be converting long term as a part of the government system, about 6 or 7 of them have direct or indirect infrastructure and Ministry of Infrastructure related stuff. So you have the housing policy, which is one of the 10 priority areas. The waste management, like we have someone on that particular project that's assisting. You have the design and build of the court complex. We have our hands in that. We have the ports, the development of the seaport. We have our hands in that. And there's a couple of others that need our team to make representation on. So while the housing is directly led by our ministry, they utilize our resources and skills and expertise to be able to try and deliver these. So again, so if we don't work, government doesn't work, because a lot of things that you need to do to move it from policy or from pen to paper to actually reality needs our skill set within our ministry to be able to do. And even if it's something as simple as moving from, okay, well, maybe we don't need your skill set directly, but we need to be able to hire a consultant. You need to speak with us so we can give some guidance on how those terms of reference are to be laid out so they can assist you down the road. So we have a very, very integral part. So if you think about it, 60 to 70% of the top 10 priority projects in the government that we've identified as a government, infrastructure plays a direct or indirect role in it. So that alone should tell you we don't work, government doesn't work.
I like what you said about, about the tangible things. It is the truth. A lot of times you may be working behind the scene, and when you can't see that tangible output, sometimes people feel like you're not working. So being in the Ministry of Infrastructure, it does put you in the forefront to say that, yes, you are going to help provide those tangible items for people to see what's happening in the country. Go ahead.
Well, definitely, because even if you think about it, coming out of the Ministry of Health and basically having a lot to do with the COVID-19 communication, persons would realize I would have been on the job for about 4 months now. And outside of the communications that I would have done on the Grand Turk Bridge issue and doing a few videos on that, you would have basically not heard from me for a long time, which isn't normal for persons. But before I come to the public with anything, had to get some work done, make sure certain things were deliverable. So now, 4 months in, I'm in a position to do a March media tour, which I was glad when you reached out. That kind of fit in kind of perfectly to what we were thinking about, because now we have things that we can report on, but also we have a proper idea of the direction of the deliverables we want to definitely have, because we are looking at $10 million essentially in roads and electrification. Hopefully all of that can be done within the next 12 months. We've done the tender, and that's already closed for the Ponds and Bridges project that's in Grand Turk that we're going to be doing. We've put a lot of energy in the community enhancement program, and while we won't be able to deliver everything in this budget cycle, a lot of the work we've done, we're going to be able to award those contracts and award those things in the new budget cycle. So like right now, I believe residents in South Caicos, particularly because they would have been beneficiaries of the community enhancement program, this budget cycle, I'm really excited about what they're going to see visibly changing down there by the Regatta Village. So that entire corridor, we're looking to have those places that have older buildings and stuff, remove all of the debris from around that. There was a Timco building that burnt down sometime, clean that up. We're going to put about 4 gazebos down right there by the wharf. We're going to fix the wall down there, as well as going straight up to the old DC's house. There's an old building there that we're going to have some demolition work done. We're going to clean up the old DC's house, because up there has a lovely vantage point, and a majority of that work and funding will happen during the end of this budget cycle. And then we're going to get to focusing on the redevelopment of the Regatta Village in of itself. So you're going to see some visible stuff, and as a part of that $10 million worth of road works, we'll put some infrastructure road-wise in South Caicos, because South Caicos and North Caicos in the past got significant amounts of roads. People forget that they also need road upgrades as well. So even if you think about just that simple loop around the Regatta Village, from the church coming straight around to the clinic side, just having that paved will enhance the Regatta Village significantly. So now that we're putting the actual gazebos down first, now you can go back and pave that whole area. So from the village itself, from the concrete layer straight up to the wharf, that will be a nice paved area where persons can walk and congregate and vehicles could pass nicely. And then you go up the hill, and then we could repurpose some of those older buildings, because some of those buildings on that folly, I would call it, on the down by the sea there, those are like 3, 4, 5, 6 feet wide walls.
Right.
So that's that old school construction, like from when there was raking salt and stuff. So those buildings could be repurposed for whatever the mind can think of. So you get rid of the old wooden stuff that's in there, but the structure is still good. Might want to put some tents in there, be able to have persons sail in there. You could do anything, whether Regatta Village related or anything longer term.
So you mentioned the community enhancement project, and it's really good to hear what's happening in South Caicos, because a lot of times we feel like South Caicos, well, let me speak for myself, like South Caicos has been left behind. But just hearing you say that, I mean, that's really good news for South Caicos, because it does need an upgrade, especially in those areas. This enhancement project also, I'm sure this is extended to all of the islands.
Of course, it's a program, and essentially, right, which when it came in, we had an estimated about $2 million left in that particular vote to be able to do community enhancement works. It's formally in the budget as works program, but we're converting that to the community enhancement program. So essentially what I did was ask MPs from across the country, opposition included, just so persons know, it wasn't just my MPs, even though we have the majority,
Right.
that, hey, submit projects so we can start scoping to be able to deliver. Now, some are easier than others. A lot of the money was spent on verge cleaning and just general cleaning as well. But we want to have tangible projects within that new ceiling range of the mid-value, which is from 10,000 up to 100,000. So we want projects right in that. So those 4 gazebos, each of them is probably costing maybe about 45,000 on average.
Okay.
Right. So those level of projects, because that does a couple of things, right? One, you give builders who have the skill set to do more than verge cleaning to exercise their skill, and then build a repertoire. So eventually we would want them bidding on higher value projects, the ones over $100,000, and even the ones up into the millions. Because if you don't get an opportunity because you don't have experience to do anything or to build any of your portfolio,
Right.
you'll never really be in a position to have a chance to move up and even increase your staff, increase your skills, or even increase your ability to bring in new persons to be able to do those bigger works, because you're not getting enough consistent work.
Right.
So you have something for everybody, and then the community gets something tangible.
Right.
So that includes, again, we're doing sidewalks, we're doing the gazebos, we have some cabanas that are lined up for other locations. We're doing some demolition because you have some buildings around the country that just need to be removed, so that land can be repurposed for something else.
Right.
So basically, just about anything that communities can think of that they would want, if it's within that range,
Right.
then we could see how we could get it done.
Okay.
So it has great enough flexibility that we can do a lot of things. And again, those are where they find themselves in the procurement threshold. Those things can be done off of just 3 quotes. Now, we clearly have our registration where persons can register so they can see what is being going out.
Correct.
So more than 3 persons can bid on it clearly, but it's at a threshold that the procurement process is less tedious at that point.
Right.
So it's a little bit easier to deliver some tangible things.
Correct.
While we do go after the big things like the priority projects.
I have 2 questions that came out of what you were saying. And I know you are saying that this is a project that's happening country wide.
Right.
But I just want to find out from you, are these projects being done simultaneously on every island? Just for clarity.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like literally as fast as our team can scope it
Yeah.
and put the documentation to go out,
Right.
they go out. So I haven't been holding up on anything,
Right.
right?
I'm
So
just asked that because again, sometimes people feel like you're focusing on one island
no,
versus the other.
like
So I just want to
literally,
clarify
no,
that
literally
this is
South
happening.
Cakes just
Yes.
win game because they got out before everybody else. So
Great.
it started out where we said, okay, well, we knew we wanted to do gazebos in South Cakes on the water. So theirs went out 1st. But since then, we've sent out gazebos for Provo, about 3 to start. We sent out about 4 for Grand Turk and 2 for Sawkey. So those we literally came back in, and we are in the process of evaluating those. So while it wouldn't make this side of the budget, next budget, early on, once the evaluations are done and the winning bidders are identified, those will go out to be able to execute. So right there, that's Grand Turk, South Cakes, Soil Key, and Providential right away to get gazebos. Now, Cabanas, which would be a different type of structure, we're looking to do some in Blue Hills as well as in Wheeling as well as Middle Cagas,
Okay.
right? Because Bambara Beach, and most persons would know that they had fires some time ago that burnt down those
Yes,
huts,
the huts.
that were there. So we're going to replace those with something different, and those 3 communities will get something different. We're also in the process of rescoping the Horse Stable Beach
Okay.
area. So we want to see where and how we can make improvements to that and cut it up in such a way that while we could say, all right, well, let's do a $300,000, $400,000 project and go through the entirety of the regular procurement process, which may take 6 months to a year,
Right.
or we can say, all right, well, we can break it up into manageable chunks and allow persons to be able to bid at the appropriate level to do the various things that need to be done. So literally every constituency and every island will benefit. So like in Middle Caicos, we're also beyond the Cabanas, we're looking at refurbishing the basketball court. That's right down there. I think it's in Kankbar, next to the community center, right? We're also in Salt Key. We would have done some fencing work between, I believe it's the clinic and school. We're looking to put up fencing up by the dump area to assist. So
Okay.
even though that could technically fall under the environmental health department because it's enhancing the community by
Right.
having the dump properly fenced, and that's something that we were taking on. We've also looked at the refurbishing of the canals in of itself, like the canal
Okay.
gates and stuff down in Sawkey, taking out the silk and stuff in addition to all the cleaning work. So there's a lot of moving parts. So we're tailoring it to the particular community. So again, if there's persons that have particular ideas, they can reach out to me, reach out to my team and say, all right, well, this is something that's good that we would like. So in the new budget cycle, which is a bigger project like the Bight, Jubasan, and a couple of other areas, they want to have their parks developed.
Okay.
So those were things that were submitted previously as well, but those take a little bit more time to scope. So while we have sent out the easiest stuff that was already initial scoping and stuff had done, we're going to do a little bit more work to be able to scope and cut up to develop these parks. And I believe some work was done within the Sports Commission as well,
Okay.
where they've identified the various parks across the country. So I believe there's like 8 or 10. So we will get sight of those as well to see how we can assist in using our funds to be able to deliver some of those things. So again, whatever you can think, whatever our money can do,
Right.
we'll likely do. But again, we'll do as much as we can for as many people as we can.
Okay.
We probably just can't deliver all at one time. So just know we're coming to a neighborhood near you with a community enhancement project.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a really good initiative because, there's a lot of, talk about, beautifying the country. And so it's really good to know that this is an ongoing project that is currently in the works. Well, the second question I had based on what you had said earlier, because you were talking about South Caicos, recently I noticed there was also a release in the newspaper about the airport. Can you just give a brief update on what's going on at South Caicos Airport? Because I know that's always the talk of the town to know what's happening.
Well, as the Minister of Infrastructure, not the Minister of
Yes, I know. Yes, I
TCIAA,
know
because
that's different.
it was weird enough. I missed that walkthrough because I came on that afternoon flight. But from what I understood, that was said at the Premier's State of the State address, and as well as echoed by the Minister of Border Control, Honorable Arlington Musgrove. That's something I believe it's supposed to be open early summer, I believe.
Right.
I heard April. I don't know how realistic that is, but hey, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I say early summer, but it's definitely a project that's been ongoing for some time. And I think while I know, and you would know this as well, being a real estate person, while I know North Caicos is really hot right now in the land sales division, and persons are buying up a lot of land. Be careful how much land you sell, just saying. Down in North Caicos, just read a little bit, see what pop off. South Caicos literally is the next island to be the next big thing, because particularly if and when that airport gets up and going, because what persons may not know, you have well you have two of the better hotels outside of Providenciales with East Bay and Sail Rock, right? I can't remember which star level they are, whether it's both are 3 stars or whether East Bay is 3 star and Sail Rock is 5 star.
Okay.
I ain't sure, but I do know that East Bay is in the process of transitioning and rebranding to a Marriott.
Okay.
So you're looking at having Sail Rock as well as a Marriott in South Caicos. The potential for international airport. It is an international airport, but the terminal itself being in, like, you have all of the things that can get and drive
Right.
economy within the economy. So look for South Caicos to have a nice little boom. So outside of just not forgetting South Caicos,
Right.
it makes sense for us to put as much infrastructure in South Caicos that we can, whether on small scale or large scale, because people from South Caicos, if you really want to go home, I think you better start looking at repositioning yourself, because I think within the next few years, South Caicos will be like roaring, and you don't want to wait till things get out the gate and then you're coming behind and saying, what about us? You have to put in the work ahead of time to be able to maximize your ability. So even if it doesn't mean you physically moving back to South Caicos, it might just mean you investing in businesses in South Caicos.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you said that South Caicos is the next place you probably want to look, because we always get that question in real estate. And I know, like you said, North Caicos has been really taken off, and I feel like North Caicos is a hot spot. So it's interesting to get your take on South Caicos. But I mean, now I know even more about South Caicos and what's coming for South Caicos, to be able to see what's happening in the future. You mentioned the state of the state. So just backtracking on that a little bit, while watching it as well, I heard the Premier, he spoke about the new housing initiative policies that, have now been passed and is now in place. And he talked about quality and affordable housing for Turks and Caicos Islanders. I'm hoping that you can just elaborate a little bit more about that for me, to let us know what that policy or project is all about.
Okay. Let's let me look at the camera right there. I set the bar properly.
Yes.
It's a policy framework. There's more work to be done, right? So there are overall the gist, and you mentioned quality as well as affordable, but the gist is to have quality homes at affordable prices. Now, affordable varies from person to person, clearly.
Yes.
What you can afford $5 million as a real estate agent, and what I can afford as a
Minister.
not as wealthy politician. It's two different things, right?
Yes.
So that's it. Just so we want to be in a position where we assist with persons being able to, throughout the stratosphere, from as low as $150 up to $350 in terms of the housing stock that's on the market. So we have 3 short-term programs that we're rolling out first, but in Coyote, the plan is to develop upwards of 8 programs. So I'll talk about the longer term ones, and then I'll get to the ones now. So longer term, we're looking at setting up a housing trust,
Okay.
as well as setting up a housing authority, looking at rent to own options, public private partnerships, and stuff like that. So those things will take time, but we can't develop everything at once, right?
Correct.
So those things will take time to develop, right? So the three projects the three programs, sorry, that we are looking at now is the one, number one is the one where you can partner, so to speak, with developers, local and foreign, to develop crown land or private land at significant concession. So there's a potential for persons who want to engage in that market to get up to 100% duty concessions.
Okay.
So that is basically up to 50% more than what is on the I think it's the Encouragement of Investment Act right now. So any concessions you would get normally for any regular development, you can go up to 100% or 50% more than what exists. So because we know we need housing stock on the market, so whatever the quality of that building type is, we want to bring those prices significantly down, 50% stamp duty on whatever transfers as well. So we're doing all that we can from that program to be able to get as many houses on the market as possible. So that number one is, I think, is going to be the key driver to get mass houses. So we have a number of government crown parcels that we have identified, and we literally this afternoon, the last meeting that I have before jumping on the plane from Granada to come here for this interview was with the Crown Land unit and persons.
Right.
From that, so because we're going through the standard operating procedures and ensuring that everyone's on the same page of the process needed to be able to move from having crown land, develop it, and persons getting their keys.
Right.
So we've already had a meeting with InvestTC since the policy is passed. So kind of a follow-up to say, okay, well, who's going to be the point person for these types of things? Is it the Department of Housing? Is it InvestTC? Do we both take it? Do we both review it? Because we're going to have to set up the housing committee, which will have all these persons. We've already had a meeting in-house with housing and planning to ensure that we know the types of housing solutions that planning is willing to pass, because it doesn't make sense. A developer comes, want to build X type of housing solution, and then it get to the point that we pass it, we do everything, and then it's held up at planning because planning doesn't want to pass it because you have to get building certificates still, even though it would have been a part of the government signing off. We had a meeting with Crown Land.
Right.
And now the last meeting is likely going to be with the Ministry of Finance personnel, because we have to make sure whatever duty concessions and stuff that comes through, to make sure that that mechanism is all in line. So all the major stakeholders that will be a part of the housing committee to be reviewing all of the proposals that come in, we want to make sure everybody's lined up so we can tighten up our standard operating procedures so everything runs smoothly.
Correct.
Because we don't want any hiccups. They say, okay, well, this wasn't done, that wasn't done. So once we have all that stuff cleaned up, we'll make sure when we communicate with John Q. Public Water developers or contractors or whoever, we'll financiers, bankers, real estate agents, everybody is on board. And by the way, we will be launching the policy officially sometime mid-April. So next month we'll have a public launch, because I know a lot of people are like, yeah, we want a policy, copy the policy, copy the policy, copy. Hold tight, we coming, we coming. Just trying to make sure we walk out all the kinks, because again, we passed the framework, so now we have to operationalize that framework. So that's what we're going to be doing fairly rapidly, because we would have had tons of stakeholder meetings, we would have had housing survey, a lot of things went into this. And it's just a quick shout out to the former minister, Amana Bakira, who worked with the team prior to me taking over to bring it to this point where I would have been able to take it to cabinet and have it pass in its current form, right? So lots of work would have been done with this policy to get it to this point, but there's more work to be done. So that's program one. Program 2 is the home improvement
Okay.
program. So that program, we're looking to assist Turks and Caicos Islanders who are in homes that are not as, it's below standard, let's just
Yes.
say,
Correct.
and we'll assist them up to $50,000 worth of repairs. Now, this isn't a cash grant.
Right.
We'll do the assessment, check your eligibility because we're looking for persons probably more elderly, vulnerable,
Okay.
maybe single mothers, whatever the case may be, and assess with the assistance of social development and others
Okay.
to make sure that you're in need, right? And then you get the contractor to go in, create an estimate, and then we pay the contractor to do the work for you.
Correct.
So we wouldn't give you to go find a contractor.
Right.
So with the engagement that I was talking about earlier, mentioned why we mentioned the contractors, we want to have a pool of contractors, primarily local, to be able to benefit from this.
Right.
So you have money set aside to be able to do these works. So that's the essence of Program 2, and that's going to be done across the Turks and Caicos Islands. So
And that's up to $50,000.
up to $50,000 in repairs that we will, or upgrades, whether it's repairs or upgrades. Because what we have to remember too, we've had Hurricane Ike 2008, people still trying to recover from that. You had Irma 2017, people still trying to recover from that. You had last year Fiona, people still trying to recover from that. You're talking about 3 major storms in the last 15 years, and people haven't fully bounced back.
Correct.
And for whatever reason, whether lack of insurance, not enough insurance, underinsurance, whatever the case may be, or just not being in a position where they are in a place that they can live well and
Right.
have appropriate shelter, right? We need to help assist,
Right.
right? Because that has all kind of ripple effects if you're not in a proper sheltered environment, right? So that's program number 2. Program number 3.
You know, before you get on to program number 2, I just want to say, I don't want to prolong,
No problem.
but just want to say, the reason I asked about $50,000 because you may have some people saying that $50,000 may not be sufficient.
It might not
were
be,
there
but you
any?
have nothing right now.
Yeah, no, I was going to say,
So it should be
were
able
there
to.
any consideration saying that just saying because you were talking about persons' homes who may have been destroyed by the hurricane, etc.
Okay. No,
If there are
program 3.
Okay,
Program 3
okay,
might cover
okay.
that. Let me
Go
explain
ahead.
program 3, and
3.
it might cover what you're thinking about, right?
All right.
Program number 3 is the community renewal and infilling program. So a part of it is that we know there's been a lot of movement out of your historic communities. So let's say, for an example, you have an elderly person who moved out of their traditional home to live with their, let's say, their kids now, but they still own the land and the structure. Let's say it's a wooden structure. That person would be able to apply for us, one, to demolish that home,
Okay.
to clear the land for them, and build them a small house.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that answers the question.
Right. So that's program 3. So because we want to encourage persons to move back into the traditional communities, and in that instance, it wouldn't be outright building a house for free, but it'll be okay. Well, it's peppercorn rates for the life of that person, and then it'll be like a reduced cost to whoever inherits the home thereafter. Because it's tricky with government finances. You have to show a way of paying it back if it's at that level in terms of building a person a home. And this isn't anything new or we reinventing the wheel. This is what was done after Hurricane Ike with the EU funded and TCIG funded homes and repairs. So a lot of the stuff we're talking about and wanting to do, it has been done in various forms prior. So we're basically pulling all of this stuff together under one housing framework to provide adequate shelter for Turks and Caicos Islanders and residents as well. So even back with program 1, we want to encourage large tracts of landowners who have large tracts of land, landowners with large tracts of land, 20 acres, 10 acres, 30 acres. You might want to pair up with a developer to just develop that for housing because the need is great. I think we need about 600 units for the next 10 to 20 years being on, and that doesn't only include houses standalone or townhouses, which is a different form of homes. That also includes apartment units. So if you have a development where you're going to build 5 or more apartment units, you might be able to qualify for up to the 100% duty exemption
Right.
on bringing in your materials and whatever stuff to be able to make that
Right.
possible. Because again, we need adequate housing on the market, and a housing unit isn't a house. It's just whatever you go into shelter for. So there might be hybrids, and the housing committee will look at all the different proposals and put the various agreements in place to be able to do it. Because you building a 10 bedroom or 10 unit 1 bedroom or 10 1 bedroom units
yes.
of apartments, it's not the same as building, or shouldn't have the same stress tests as if someone was building 50 housing units on its own. You know what I mean? So the paperwork should be less and different. So that's why I was talking about the communication with the finance ministry. That might just be a simple concession order.
Correct.
To build that 10 units of
Yeah.
housing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's simple. So you wouldn't need a big time agreement and stamp duty and this and that. But we want to encourage more units because there's stuff that's in the queue already.
Right.
That's just happening organically because there's opportunity there, right? But we want to make sure we're trying to supercharge it.
Yeah, having that type of concession opportunity, I think, is going to make a big difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Also, I think during the State of the State, just again talking about the housing policy, I remembered, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Premier did speak about, an immediate, I think it was $3 million being for this project, allocated for this project. How far do you see this $3 million going?
Well, I see this $3 million going as far as $3 million can go, right? But it's a start. And the reason why that's important because each of the programs can utilize that $3 million, right? All of it or part of it, but it'll be spread proportionately across the 3 projects as the need arises. Program 1. In the past, TCIG has given out land. Cut it up, give you a piece of land. That used to be the Turks Island dream. You're going to have to dream bigger now.
Yes.
Watch me now. This is the housing dream.
I'm watching you. Go ahead.
Watch me go. This is the housing dream. Now, we want a developer to come in, local or foreign, whoever this person is. And just for the record, if Crown land is being developed, whoever the developers are has to be at least 50% local.
Okay.
So there's no Crown land getting divested to Turks and Caicos Islands or being developed unless there's at least a 50% local partner.
Okay.
One or several or whatever, but whatever entity comes has to be at least 50%. So that's to make sure when we're getting away from Turks and Caicos Islands assets, Turks and Caicos Islands are benefiting and having the opportunity. All right, that's an aside. Now, so back to the original Turks Island dream, which was, all right, well, I need my piece of land. Everybody cherishes land. But you have a land, but you have no infrastructure. We allow subdivisions to be created.
Correct.
With no infrastructure, no roads, no piping, none of that was done.
Yes.
Even though by law,
it should have been.
It should have been, but when people selling their land, nobody going back to check whether they put in the infrastructure that was agreed.
Correct.
So somebody get to cut up 20 lots. They're supposed to put an X amount of roads and this, that, and the third, never did. So now you got people who legitimately bought their property, building. Now, because where it is, they in trouble, got to bring Fortis way down in the back of God knows where. Got to bring Provo Water behind God knows back. And now on a private road, which government doesn't have any responsibility for directly to upkeep, no road.
Right.
So the 3 main pieces of infrastructure, traditionally, particularly government and private, you rarely had the appropriate infrastructure. So when we do subdivisions now, or the housing communities that we want to build, because it's more than just housing.
Right.
Because you have to have all the appropriate auxiliary. So we want you to close enough to the school. We want you to have park very close, have commercial districts, so your little mom and pop's grocery stores and things, so you don't have to go downtown to this place or uptown to that place. We want you to have religious facilities,
Right.
whatever that is. So we want communities. So
Okay.
it wouldn't just be housing divisions that we're creating, just for the
Right.
record, right? So, but in addition to the significant concessions, we want to put the infrastructure in for you. So we're building a community and we're cutting up the lots and doing whatever. We want to make sure before you get your key or before that development is complete, you have your nice tarred roads, you have Provo Water, Fortis, and again, this will be across, so it might just be government and other islands,
Right.
right? Access to your potable water. We want whatever the telecommunications company, so your Flow, your Digicel, they'd be able to come in, probably in the water company. So we want the majority of that stuff to go underground. So when you're cutting up the land, all utilities we want to go underground. So once it's covered, everything is set up. And this will be done ahead of the building even taking place. So some of that money is going to be used for that. So out of that $300 million, no, $3 million,
Right.
even though like it's $300 million, out of that $3 million,
Oh, that's
the
$3
first
million.
$3 million, let's
Yes.
say, to properly set up a first subdivision, you need $500,000 worth of infrastructure to be put in, because
Right.
it could be big or it could be small. Let's say the 500,000. That
Right.
500,000 would be used for that. So that'll be something that you get. So right away, your property already enhanced, right? Because all the infrastructure, you ain't on dirt roads, none of that, because we want to do it right from the get-go. We don't want to say, okay, well, we can subdivide it, get your stuff built out, and then maybe in the next budget
Right.
we can
It
do
all needs
something
to
for
come
you.
together. Because,
Exactly, one time. So we want to build it properly once. So that's how you benefit from program one, from that initial $3 million. So maybe we get one or two in that tranche. Maybe we get three. Who knows? In terms
Right.
of the communities that we build, based on the proposals that will eventually come forward. And of course, that $50,000 up to $50,000, depending on the application list. Some of that money can be done there. Again, $500,000, that can get you at least 10 homes fixed. It could get you 20, because it's
Right.
up to.
Right.
Everybody don't need up to $50,000 worth of repairs. And again, we're talking about getting in contractors, negotiating the rates you want them to pay, so we're getting bang for your buck. We're not necessarily say, all right, well, we want you to give us government rates. We want to get better than market rates, because we're
Right.
going to give you volume. Because if I can guarantee you as a contractor, let's say $500,000 worth of work, how much does that get me? Versus you going here, there, and everywhere hustling for
Right.
$500,000. That should
Right.
be able to get me. That might be able to get me 20 homes, 30 homes. Who knows what it can get me? So
Right.
those are the things that we can negotiate on your behalf to maximize. $500,000 worth of work, $250,000 worth of work. What does that get me? If we can guarantee a certain amount of work for various contractors to deliver for us. And then, of course, the demolition, clearing land and lots for persons, as well as the bills. We might not be able to build tons of homes, but we might build a home that's $150,000, 2-bedroom. Because again, you're building something nice, adequate for a person who might be vulnerable. You're not necessarily building a mansion for anyone. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's affordable. And then what people have to understand as well, the building solutions that we use, it doesn't have to be brick and mortar for everything, right? While traditionally we like brick and mortar, but it depends on the housing solution. We are in a hurricane belt. But that's where the beatment planning comes in, because you have other housing solutions or building solutions that can do better than brick and mortar, because some have the ability to move with the wind. So the stress isn't impacted on the actual structure because of that little bit of give. where you have shown, and even I believe because we went to the Bahamas recently, straight up brick structures collapsing on the Dorian because there was no give. So once the pressure and wind speeds was too high, walls collapse. Whereas other solutions that had a little bit of give or enough give, they kind of survive. And the reports that we were getting from up there was that a lot of the issues was roof related, not the actual structure. So that means the way the roof was sat on, the building wasn't appropriate. So that's
Right.
a contractor's issue. So with all of these buildings that we will be doing, we'll ensure that we have additional inspectors. So whether or not we are able to hire new planning inspectors to be able to monitor these communities that we'll be building, or whether that has to be a part of the contract for us to outsource building inspectors to be able to monitor it. Because what we don't want to have happen is to have new communities perfectly built, look pretty, good infrastructure, first storm, everything blow down.
Yeah.
Can't happen under my watch. Just can't happen. So we have to make sure we put in all the checks and balances, because we want to do this fast, but we want to do it right as
Yeah.
well. So on the third end, so we can spend that $3 million. You ain't gonna worry about that. But more money there,
Right.
right? So essentially, what this will allow us to do is to work out all the kinks on how we
Okay.
spend, because the way it's set up now, that money is basically earmarked as a capital project. So that's
Right.
a different process altogether to be able to deliver that. Because what we would like to happen is for those programs to be in our recurrent budget
Okay.
that the housing department will manage. But because it's a case where we were kind of earmarking money, so all of it didn't go as a surplus at the end of the year. So that's earmarked as a capital project now. So a lot of the criteria and how we're going to utilize it, so we're going to work out all those kinks now. So it doesn't make sense you having earmarked $50 million and
Right.
it takes a millionaires to spend 50, when you can work out the amount on $3 million and say, all right, well, Premier, we just spent that $3 million, give me more.
Yes.
So when we're in a position to say we've spent the $3 million, these are the ways we've spent it. Because again, you got three arms under one. You got the infrastructure development for
Right.
housing divisions that we are communities that we're setting up. You got the repairs, the home repairs program that those funds will assist, and then you have the infilling, so that's the clearing land as well as building new homes for the vulnerable. And again, so when you think about that, 3 million is almost it's a drop in the bucket. But guess what? Once the process is set up and it's working, all it is replenishment of money, and we have a ton of money sitting up looking pretty. And if we can get it for the capital side of things, which I found out that as long as you're not adding monies to your recurrent, you can have deficit budgets based on the capital side.
Okay.
So that 250 or what might be 300 million in a short while, we could say, all right, well, Premier, give us one little extra 10 million of that,
Right.
and keep it as a capital rather than putting it in our day to day. But you manage it the same way,
Okay.
if you get what I mean.
Yes. Now I have a question for you.
Just one.
I'm actually, no, I have plenty of questions for
All
you.
right, no problem.
But I have a question thinking like I'm a regular citizen of this island, so I want to know. I've heard all that you've said, and it sounds all good. But the average person on the street wants to just know probably when will they be able to see this tangible? I know it's a process, and I know these are the three projects that you're working on. When do you think they'll be able to see something tangible in terms of, for example, even you're talking about, the project, for the elderly and, helping to rebuild home. When do you think we will be able to see the tangibleness of this whole thing?
I think for me, no more than 6 months.
You feel so?
6
Right.
months. And I already told my team, and they was looking at me crazy, but that's okay. I said 6 months for the first, housing agreement to be signed. So that's allocation of a particular piece of crown land. I would like at least, actually, 2 in Provo, at least 1 in Grand Turk. Clearly, we'll identify land across. So where there is persons who are interested, and of course, private persons can come forward as well to participate in it. But I'm talking about Crown Land specifically. I want those agreements signed within the first 6 months, and I want us to be giving out keys within the next 12 months. So this time next year, I want to be in a picture with the premier and homeowners handing out keys.
Yeah.
Of course, homeowners, because
Yes,
that's the main thing.
that's the main thing.
That's the main thing.
Yes.
Handing out keys to residents in their new, nice subdivision,
Great.
new community. So we don't have a lot of time. The clock is ticking. A lot of work is going into this, getting it to this point.
Yes.
More work has to be done. This is a top priority. We have to turbocharge it, and we have a department dedicated to just these 3 programs.
Well, that's good.
Literally. And we're getting more staff. We've identified a new office for them so they'll have this space to be able to function. So essentially, you're further developing 3 programs.
Right.
That's all they have to do every day for the next 20 years.
Well, that sounds good. That's their priority.
That's all they have to do.
I would like to say that it sounds good, but one of the things we always want to make sure is that the process for residents to be able to apply and to receive these benefits, that it's straightforward and simple. I mean, I think I'm sure that you're looking into it,
Right.
but I just want to reiterate that, because sometimes we have a lot of good things that we can actually grab, but when we start going through the process of getting it, it turns people away. It's like, okay,
Right.
that process is too tedious. I don't want to have to go and do all these things.
So, and while I don't have the final, because it will be finalized in the days, in a couple months to come. So there's a couple of key things you would need, particularly when it comes to, let's say, Program 1, which is the access to housing itself, right?
Right.
Because all of it will be an application process. So for that, it'll be first come, first serve.
Right.
So we're looking to, and I literally was on the plane with the director of the Department of E-Governance, Technology, and Innovation. So the old computer unit for persons who don't know. And I was telling him, we need to meet so we can develop a portal for the various applications that persons will have to apply. So you can have an application for each of the programs, essentially, right? For Program 1, the main thing you will need beyond proof of your Turks and Caicos Islander status is that you have to show, you as an individual or you as a couple or whatever, show your ability to get financing.
Okay.
Because a part of our issue with being land strapped now is because a lot of persons would have been given land, but they never had the ability to develop the land at that time, and they still don't. So they have land, everybody access to land,
Right.
but you can't develop it. As an initial step, we must know that you have the ability to afford the product that is being sold.
Okay.
So again, that's where the range of options will be there. So that's why I said as low as 150, as high as 350 potentially, right? And clearly that'll be worked out based on what's being proposed, square footage, all of those details, right? Because the focus is first-time homeowners, by the way, which is in line with the persons who would normally get access to government land now, which would be the first-time residential owners. So if you had government land before, they're saying for you.
Right.
They're saying for you. This
Right.
for, again, first-time homeowners. So once we know you can develop it, right? When I say develop it, pay for it.
Right.
So that could be a traditional bank, that could be other financing mechanism. We're looking to see where we can get financial institutions possibly brought in to be a part of that as well, to make those lending possible or more doable
Right.
than what already exists in the market. So that might be an option as well once you can qualify.
Okay.
Right? So if you could get a bank loan for $250,000, you shouldn't have a problem buying a $200,000 house kind of thing.
Right.
Because, again, with the new Turks and Caicos dream about owning a home rather than just piece of dirt or a piece of land, is we want to make sure that those that are ready to move from rent to mortgage
Right.
can. We want to make sure that those are ready to just have their first home, even if you consider it a starter home,
Correct.
be able to get on that first ladder, have that equity, have all the benefits of getting land at the reduced price, getting significant concessions. Because what we're doing essentially, what people have to understand, what we're doing is we're passing on wealth from the government to the homeowner, the Turks and Caicos Islander, because you may pay $250,000 for your home, land incorporated, but the actual value of that house or that home might be $350,000 based on all of the deductions on the land as well as all the concessions that are getting passed directly to you.
Right.
And all we ask you to do is hold that for 10 years. And after 10 years, if you say, all right, well, I've spent 10 years in this community, my first home, I want to move out. Now that thing that you bought for $250 actually could sell on the open market for $400,000. You just won game for $150,000.
Right.
That's your gift. Yeah. Your gift from us.
Yes.
Your government.
Correct.
So that's what we're doing. That's real empowerment. That's your equity. That's your piece of the pie. So you don't have to wonder whether or not the developer who's getting the concession is pocketing the access. No, that's for you. They will get their margin for doing the building of the structure. We will ensure that whatever agreement is in place. So if they come, so a part of it, they have to say, okay, well, we're going to build these homes at X cost. And these are the concessions.
Right.
Once that's factored in. So we have to agree the selling point before they build their first home. Because we want to make sure that it is affordable.
Right.
Quality, yes, but affordable. Right? So we don't want to see homes that are $500,000.
Right.
Almost $1 million. That's a different stratosphere. We want quality, affordable homes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it isn't about the making the money off of the person, because persons right now, if they have the financial wherewithal to be able to participate at that level, go right ahead.
Yeah.
We don't stop you, and we even have the first-time homeowners policy that you can get up to, I believe it's like $50,000 worth of concessions right now if you have your land and you're building on your own. So there's a number of policies and initiatives that's out there to make it easier, but we're going one step further and say, all right, well, you don't have to do nothing besides be a Turks and Caicos Islander who could get a loan of X and make your application.
Right.
And then you qualify, and again, even if you miss out on this cycle, there'll be more housing schemes coming on board, both from the private side as well as from the Crown Land side, to be able. So again, once you're ready, because the whole idea is we don't want land tied up with people who aren't ready. Once you're ready, we're ready to give you an offering. So if the initial couple of housing developments or community developments are successful, let's say we put 150 units on the market, but there's a need for another 300, meaning from the Turks and Caicos Island, we'll look at the other areas, because we're looking at how we can reserve and earmark pieces of land right now. That was the meeting we had this afternoon with the land commission and that crew, to be able to figure out ways how we're going to get from Crown land on Mars to individual lots and houses to Turks and Caicos Island. So those are the things that we're ironing out the kinks, so we're all on the same page, so we can get from development to keys, or dirt to keys.
Right. I mean, I really like that whole idea of not just a Turks Islander owning a piece of dirt, but actually getting into something tangible. Because like you've said already, I think gone are the days where we just rely on just getting a piece of land and then we never have the ability to develop it.
Exactly.
So it's just, I think it's counterproductive to continue it that way.
Right.
And we need to move forward where we can make sure that we have shelter over our heads.
Right. And that way, I believe as well, persons can worry less on when they own a piece of government land because the push for getting land is because it's finite, so people believe they're going to lose out, so they just wanted to have it.
Right.
They don't want to have it to develop right now. It's like land almost going and going and going and going. I want one piece, I want one piece, I want one piece.
Right.
But if you know that, listen, the government is the basically reserve land bank for the country, and all Turks and Caicos Islands to benefit this generation and generations to come.
Yes.
Right? If you believe that, we make it available as the need grows. So if we find out that, whoa, we have an application of 500 people or 500 people and or couples or whatever the iteration they're in are ready to, or I have the ability to get $500,000 worth of loans, let's just say for argument's sake.
Right.
So that means every product we could put on the market, all of them could get. That means we have to put more products on the market.
Correct.
So that means for those 500 people, we don't stop until all of them are satisfied, right?
Right.
And then in that process, we realize, man, there's another 200 people that now qualify. We got to go back and put more on the market. And you got to remember as well, government has the ability to buy land. So we can go back and look at private land transactions, look for tracts, and not only will we look at government land, but we could scout what land in the private market that might be good for housing. So we say, well, rather than having a surplus of 20 million this year, man, let's take 10 of that, buy this 100 acres somewhere.
Right.
So we could develop it for housing later.
Right. So I mean, go ahead.
The flexibility and the possibilities, while not endless, because land is finite, it is almost limitless. So there's ways to get more land on the market, because again, we can buy it because as a country we're doing well financially. It's just a matter of how we maximize using those dollars that are available.
Right. Just kept looking at my phone because a few people are making comments. I think you did answer this question already, but I still want to ask it again just to make sure this person actually heard the response. It says, do you have transparent requirements, I guess, for first-time home buyers that they will need to qualify in order for them to qualify?
Yeah, first come, first serve, and you got to remember we're the government, so we have databases with everybody who owns every stick of piece of crown land in this world. So you can't get around us. So everybody will be vetted, and again, so essentially how I envision this process going: application process opens up, you go online, you put in your application, you pick the type of house that you would want to participate in, you send in all your requirements, you confirm whether or not you've owned crown land in the past, you have your IDs, we run your name through the land database to make sure you may benefit before, and then once you're a person who's deemed as qualified to be able to participate in this program, right? Then that information will be sent on to whoever those developers are, and then you say, all right, well, this was the first 50. We got 50 homes. The developer confirms that, all right, well, you want it. You get into the initial agreement, right? So the process can start. Then home is built. Developer gets paid by the bank or the financial institution. You get your keys and your land transferred to you, and whatever legal process that got to happen behind the scenes takes place. So we are trying to make it as straightforward, transparent as possible, because again, those who qualify will be able to get a home. So if it just means us building more, we will build more.
Right.
So whatever the number, so it isn't going to be like we're going to just build 50 and say, oh, government tired, man, we ain't building no more homes, we done.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be a scramble. So whoever the first 50 that vetted qualify, they get those 50 homes. Then you open up more divisions, house and land becoming available. You may say, all right, well, I like this particular housing style, I like that particular housing style. This is my price range. So you'll have, and we're looking to have mixed use communities. So a couple. So you might be a person with a quarter-acre lot or 0.2-acre lot with a house valued at $175,000, lovely build next to a house that's 350, a little bigger, also nice build, same quality, but just different price points because it's a different style. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we're looking to ensure that we have mixed use, so and different types of families because we don't want any uniformity in our community. So we don't want one type of person or type of family living in the community. So we want young professionals who ready to own a home. We want young families ready to get
Right.
their first mortgage. We want persons who might single moms, single dads, one or two children who are in a position who can afford to
Right.
be able to do that. We might even want some elderly person who just never got a chance to get a piece of government land.
Right.
But they still have the financial wherewithal to be able to get a mortgage and maintain it for the term of that mortgage.
Right. I know you have your department may have this all thought out, but just as you spoke about mixed use, a lot of times when persons are buying real estate, sometimes they hesitate with buying certain homes because they always think about that extra income. So having a home for them to really stay in and having like an efficiency attached
No,
to
ain't none
it.
of that.
No, I'm just saying.
Oh no,
Just
that
saying.
ain't a goal.
I was gonna say.
I hear you.
I was gonna ask you if that was gonna be a possible option for people because sometimes you go to the bank, you may qualify for the loan, but then some people are thinking, okay, they may still not be able to completely handle that monthly payment like they should. So that's why some people look for that action. We're not talking about like so many apartments or anything, but not even a concept where there is an efficiency that's attached to it.
Well, we'll see what is proposed.
Proposed. I'm
But
just
I don't
asking.
think, well, from my standpoint, and
You
as
don't
only
think
one
so?
person, I don't think that will be the types of designs that we'll be looking to,
Okay.
right? While like it,
I gotta
understand where
ask
you're
you
coming from.
though.
No problem. But that ain't the
That's
design. No, like if later on you want to expand and do something in addition to,
that's
then
up to you.
after a point probably. But definitely, if the land can hold it, clearly you would be able to
Right.
develop that. But in the initial, it wouldn't be designed. At least those one-off housing solutions designed for having an addition. Now, I know persons because I saw in the couple of the Bahamian models down in Abaco that they had some homes with garages,
Okay.
right? Big, good sized garages. So you could technically make that like
Turn
a
it into an
like
efficiency.
repurpose it into an
Right.
efficiency if you wanted to, technically speaking. But we wouldn't encourage it. But anything's possible.
You're gonna have that question. I'm
No,
telling
that's
you.
fine. But that ain't exactly where we want to go again. First time homeowners.
Yes.
Get you with some keys.
Great. All right. So we've used up most of our time, but
Okay.
before we go, I
Right.
still have two main questions I have to ask you.
Okay.
City water in North Caicos. I don't know if this falls within your
No, it does
prospect
not,
or
but
not,
I will answer
but
nonetheless.
would you be able to, yes, just give an update on, if there's any possibility for city water in North Caicos anytime soon?
Well, while it doesn't fall under my remit, now I would have to speak directly to the Minister of Home Affairs, which water undertaking falls under. Now, I know we don't presently have a reverse osmosis plant in North Caicos. I know we have one, Salt Key, Grand Turks, South Caicos. And then Provo kind of does its own thing with Provo Water, taking that on. I think that depending on, I guess, the amount of people, once you get a bit more of critical mass, then that's an investment that government will have to seriously consider because North Caicos ain't small.
Right. I was just
North
wondering also
Caicos
not to
is-
cut your cost, but also not just government, but if you would have known of anything even private wise
Well,
in the
again,
works. Yeah.
if it's the reason why it would have to be government in the first instance because North Caicos is so big, the type of investment you would have just to
Sure.
run pipes, and they don't have the critical mass of people there to be able to support a reverse osmosis
Osmosis
plant being set up. You would literally have to set one up in each of these settlements to make it viable. And then you would also need to be close enough to the sea to pull the water or
Yeah.
the wells or whatever that you would need to be able to do the reverse osmosis. So that's something that would need to be studied. But I'm certain where additional development and more people end up in North Caicos, because again, outside of South Caicos, or after South Caicos, North Caicos is probably the next to take off. And there's some good things that's going to happen over there, but it's more likely that even if you get a big hotel or something positioned down in North Caicos, they'll probably have to do their own reverse osmosis
Their own
plant
plant,
on
yeah.
their property to be able to service their guests. So possible, but it would need the carrying capacity to be able to make it viable. And the only person who could do that, or the only entity that could do it without it being financially viable, is the government.
Okay.
So that's something we'll have to discuss, but
Right.
it is possible.
Okay. All right. Next question. This is my wrap-up question, Shram. So this is my second
Wrap up,
one.
no
Yeah.
problem.
Building a home in Turks and Caicos. If your home is above $1 million, is there? I mean, can you explain to us if this home has to be get to the minister for final approval on this home? Can you explain a little bit about that process?
Okay, so two things that comes to ministers for what is called a minister's certificate. Subdivisions of 10 lots or more, as well as homes that are not homes, any infrastructure that's over $1 million. Now, that's so those applications can go and be reviewed by the planning board.
Okay.
So it's at the beginning of the process, right? Now, that is something that's been introduced for some time, but the reason it was introduced, because I was wondering why, new planning, so like, okay, why I got to sign off on this? And it's like $1 million and 10 lots or more. The reason it was introduced is so that the minister with responsibility for planning and infrastructure will always be aware of any significant developments taking place in the country. Because imagine if you have a new hotel being requested to be built in the middle of a pond,
Right.
and it goes straight to your planning board, and you have no clue about it until after it's already passed, or after the public gets wind that this thing is taking place, and your government bringing this big hotel and sticking it in the middle of a pond and environmental this and da 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 da. But legitimately, all your technocrats legitimately passed it, and with good reason, based on whatever engineering was done, XYZ. It allows you on the front end to know, as the public face and the representative of the people of the country, to know what is going through the process. So it isn't a case where you say, okay, well, you can stop it if you like and get more information on the front end as the minister to say, all right, well, I need more information to make sure I'm comfortable with this, even going to the planning board for them to make a determination. Or you can sign it and allow the planning board to make the determination, because any application, it isn't automatic that you'll get approval.
Right.
You're just applying. And
Correct.
that's what people have to understand about processes as well. With the planning process, it's your application. It isn't your automatic approval. That's why when you see things get approved sometimes, you do see it approved with a laundry list of conditions.
Correct.
Because it's being approved based on these things being met. You know what I mean? Because that's to ensure that all of the environmental standards, all of the planning, building code standards are in place and enforced after it would have been reviewed, whatever is being proposed. So that's all that's about. So it might be something that people are just now aware of, and I believe it's something that we will need to revisit in terms of the value. I get the 10 submissions, because the 10 lots, I get why that would be important. Now, $1 million 10 years or 20 years ago, whenever it was originally instituted, isn't $1 million now. So I do see a lot of the villas that are coming through that has a significant value compared to other things. So you do see that. So you get to see what the trends are as well. But You
Yeah.
just as easily could see that on the back end of a
Yeah.
planning
Because
or
that's what I was
meeting
going to
report.
ask you with the cost of construction
Right.
now, $1 million
It's not a
isn't,
lot, so it
yeah.
might be something that, okay, well, maybe I wanted to go up to $2 million, $3 million, or whatever, right? So we can sit down and design a methodology as to how it can be tweaked to be more relevant to today's time. Because again, $1 million,
Right.
whenever that was originally
That was significant
implemented,
then.
might have been a little bit more significant. I'm pretty sure it was.
It was.
Yeah.
Great. So this is my last question. Are there any plans that you have in the works that we haven't spoken about that you feel like it's very important that we know about what you're doing in your ministry that's going to benefit the country and the people?
Well, I did kind of mention it, but I think I want to reiterate the works that we're doing in terms of roads and electrification. Now, we have basically a $5 million project that we are for Grand Trunk and Provo initially, that we are finalizing the invitation tender. We've already allocated an additional $5 million for roads and electrification. So we're looking to have Grand Trunk, Provo, Salt Key, South Cape is benefit from that. North Cape has recently benefited from about $2 million in road works, some of them in Q and other places, right?
Yes.
So I think that's important that people understand that we will focus more on community road developments, because yes, Provo can use Leeward Highway and Millennium Highway being fixed because they have their sets of issues and they might be past their useful life. But for me as a focus, I'd much rather push that back a year or two, meaning the Millennium Highway and the Leeward Highway development, and pave roads throughout the various parts of the country within the communities, because a lot of these communities haven't had any attention in the last 40 years.
Okay.
Right? So we want them to have their enhancement, which would tie right back into our community enhancement stuff. Right?
Yes.
So all of that kind of goes hand in glove. And at my very first town hall meeting that I had in Grand Trunk as the Minister of Infrastructure, I said, listen, we're going to pave every road. We just can't pave all of them at the same time.
At the same time.
So we're going to be able to do it with time. And again, once the stuff gets rolling properly, we'll just keep on adding more money to the template to be able to do more roads throughout the various communities. So today you might see a neighbor getting their road. Your road might come thereafter. But just know that we aren't cherry picking, so to speak. It's just a program that we want to get revving and have it continue. Now, before becoming the Minister of Infrastructure, I really didn't realize how important community roads were to people. Because I've gotten so many questions, when are you gonna fix my road? When are you gonna fix my road? When are you gonna fix my road? Because, traditionally people would think, all right, roads is an election thing. You just throw roads down just before election, blacktop last year, and you can get votes and you can win again. But roads have to be something that's ongoing, year in, year out.
Yes.
Multi-millions worth of dollars need to be invested. So we will fix Leeward Highway. We will find an alternate route out of Blue Hills to ease that traffic in the morning. We will fix Millennium Highway. Those things are in the queue, but they cost a little bit more money than what we can put directly into the communities on a shorter term basis. But it will happen. But all that takes time. Scoping work has begun on that prior to me taking office. So at some point we'll be able to look at it and see what the solutions and the proposals are for that fix, and then commit the funds to be able to do it.
Right.
But in the interim, we do need to give communities that uplift. So that's my initial focus while we do those longer term things. And again, while Leeward Highway might not be perfect, it's still usable.
Yes.
It's still very much usable. So I'd much prefer somebody move off of there nicely tarred and properly drainaged, filled community road within their neighborhood onto Leeward Highway that is okay to drive on, versus having a new brand spanking new Leeward Highway and they got to turn off from the brand spanking new Leeward Highway to their dirt pothole road that's been like that from the time the subdivision opened up, government or otherwise, for the last 10, 15 years. So we have to do a little bit of both, essentially.
Cool. You talked about the drainage. I noticed recently you are also focusing on that as well throughout the island. I mean, that's something I guess we all need to be fixed, and so far it seems like things are moving ahead in that and getting that under control.
Yeah, money gotta get spent because we have some issues, some created by ourselves, like by building in ponds, right? Building in places that used to be natural drainage ways. Like we've closed it up and people are like, oh, why there's flooding? Yeah, because there used to be a pond, there used to be like a soak away area, but we've built in that. So water is gonna find its lowest level. So we have to engineer fixes now what used to be natural, because before the significant development on the various islands, once it rained, the water would settle in certain places right after. So now we have to get to a place where you got to reverse engineer, because you already have people there.
Right.
So you have to figure out what's the best solutions to be able to ensure you minimize flooding in communities.
Right.
So there's works in that area that's taking place as well. So there's a couple of things that the engine of the government is looking at dealing with, and I think we'll get there.
Okay. Well, definitely I would like to say thank you so much for, coming on the show. Thank you for coming and clarifying some of these issues, especially about the housing, policy with that new, with the statement being made about this project coming on, housing policy coming on. A lot of people are interested to know what's going on, because of course this is something that hits, come close to home for a lot of us, and especially with the high cost of real estate in the Turks and Caicos. Yes, a lot of people wanted to know more about what's going on, and I look forward to hearing and getting more information on this policy when you do the launch in April, or when I think you said April.
Yeah, mid-April.
Mid-April.
Official launch.
Yes. So I also want to say thanks, of course, to those who are listening. Thanks for the comments. Thank you for the questions and the feedback. And definitely always, like I say, Let's Talk TCI Real Estate is a show geared towards getting your questions answered. And please use this opportunity, even if you have additional comments or questions, put it in the live feed, just in case. So when Honorable Jamal is just reviewing, he can see what what you would like to see also in terms of, infrastructure in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So again, I would like to say to you, thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
and to the listening audience, have a great day, and see you at the next session of Let's Talk TCI Real Estate.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate, and not that of Keller Williams TCI or any of its affiliates. Any action you take upon the information provided on this show is strictly at your own risk, and Let's Talk TCI Real Estate guests or hosts will not be liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of the material. I am not an investment advisor, broker, or dealer.